What are the coolest psychology tricks that you know or have used? Best one for kids. And this works wonders for behavioral problems. You never say don't do X. I had a terror child in daycare and people would yell at him for acting out. I would start each day by saying you're going to be a good boy today. And every time he acted out I would say wait, you're my good boy right? He would say yes and stop doing it. When his mom came to get him I made a point to of telling her how good he was. That child never acted out around me after a week. Giving students in my elementary class the illusion of choice. If you ask do you want to start your work? Or isn't it time we got something done? I modify it to, would you like to do your assignment with a pencil or blue pen? They are too consumed with this choice that they have forgotten that they didn't want to do it in the first place. Also, every recess. Did you push Jimmy? No. Okay, 2 people saw you do it and reported it to me. Are you sure you didn't? Sure. Then change it to can you tell me why you pushed him? Well, it's because. Jetsam every time. If you work with clients, prevent them from getting defensive and angry by not using the word you. It's not you didn't send the attachment. It's the attachment didn't send. Don't blame them. Blame the thing you're talking about. I take my time when I write emails to clients because I like to word things just right. One word can be the difference between a happy client and an unhappy one. The right words in the right order can influence people to make decisions you want them to make. Words are powerful. The concept of getting something for free completely derails a person's critical thinking skills. My dad was a tool distributor and drove a truck to various repair shops selling tools to mechanics. He got an idea to start selling candy bars on his truck for $1. But you would get a free candy bar with every tool purchase. Almost everyone who asked how much the candy bar was didn't want to pay $1 for one. But they would buy a $100 socket set in order to get the candy bar for free. My favorite is silently maintaining eye contact when a person is attempted to bargain or convince you of something that you don't want to do or don't believe. They usually end up negotiating with themselves, which gives you a huge advantage because once that happens, it is pretty much game over. If someone is talking or preoccupied, you can hold out your hand and they'll give you whatever they're holding. I did it to my sister with the car keys and made her think she lost them somewhere at the store. You want someone you just met to like you? Ask them open-ended questions about themselves. Don't wait for your turn to speak. Listen, and then ask a follow-up question based on what they said. If you do that a couple of times, that person feels heard and appreciated by you. If they realize they're doing all the talking, they'll apologize and ask a question of you. If your answer is short and pivots back into something they said, you have now formed a connection in their mind as a good listener who is interested in what they have to say. People like that a lot. Have a toddler that is in a bad mood? Sit down with them, look them straight in the eye, and say you're mad. So don't laugh. Just keep repeating it as seriously as you can. I've done it for 15 different cousins over a couple of decades. And by the 5th repetition of don't laugh they are busting a gut and rolling on the floor. The flinch. Whether you're negotiating a raise, the sale price of a car you want to buy, who does what chores around the house, always flinch visibly at the first and sometimes second offers. The flinch can be as simple as a small wince, a sigh, or an eye roll. The flinch quite often causes people to lowball the initial offer. I learned this from my husband and it freaking works. Got my current job at 10% over the max salary because I flinched. I used the grey rock method on my narcissist brother-in-law. Basically, I made myself so dull and boring and the opposite of drama that he learned to avoid me at all costs. It worked like a charm, and only took 4-5 encounters to take effect. If you want to calm someone down, sympathize with them whilst describing what's upsetting them in descending orders of magnitude. Understand why you're angry. You're right to be frustrated. This would annoy me too. As they accept the acknowledgements they want, they should also accept the declining emphasis on emotion and become calmer. In an argument, speak softly. It forces active listening, which leads to active thinking. When they are listening and thinking, they are not yelling, arguing, or talking. I had a very strange encounter with a co-worker once. We were on a break, had chatted a bit, the usual mundane, are you married, etc. Do you have kids? And when I said no, she waited, staring at me, for me to continue. Boy, did that ever work. The longer she stared, the more I babbled. I couldn't stop talking. I'd finish a sentence. She kept staring and I'd start talking again, and not because she was politely listening. She was compelling me to talk. I have no idea why she did that. If it was just her way or if she does that to learn things about people, but it was the creepiest conversation I have ever had. I'm older now, so that wouldn't work on me, but it sure was effective at the time. Does this count? They aren't cool, but pretty helpful. I sometimes have anxiety brain where I start to panic about the future or the past or whatever. I've learned to stop myself and tell myself, hey, wait, you need to finish your job. Your job is XXX. So, for instance, I'll be doing dishes, get lost in thought, and start to get upset and anxious. I'll then tell myself, hey, you have to finish doing the dishes. That's your job right now. And then I'll take a deep breath, or multiple deep breaths. It's just another way to center yourself and bring yourself back to the present. But it's helpful. Hard to do it at first, but I've gotten good at it. Also, sometimes anxiety brain can lead to some heavy self-loathing, probably false thoughts. I've more recently taught myself that when that happens, to stop, take a breath, and say one nice thing about myself. So when bad brain goes into, what the duck Tammy Tangerine, you're the worst. I can't believe you ducked up that insignificant thing. I'll try and stop myself and say something like, duck that. No, I am kind. That's a harder trick for sure, but I'm getting better at it. Edit. This blew up a bit. Ha, I just spent the last hour on Reddit's mobile app trying to respond to a ton of the comments I've gotten. And welp. Apparently none of my upvotes or comments registered since last night when I was on desktop. Great. Anyway, thanks for all the feedback and input. I'm glad this tip is helpful to so many people. You guys are great. Many people, I would say most, maybe almost all, are surprisingly susceptible to flattery and being told what they want to hear. People tend to shy away from this strategy, thinking it will be too obvious and clumsy. But just try it. It's as if being flattered or hearing people agree with you gives people a rush of pleasurable hormones to the brain. When things are quiet amongst a group of people, all I have to do is say oh and everyone suddenly becomes intensely curious about what is going on. I find it best to exit stage left right about that time. When you need someone to wait a moment as you hunt for something, or you're struggling, say thank you for your patience instead of sorry for the wait. It subtly strokes their ego and makes them more likely to be kind and patient with you, because you've already asserted they're kind and patient people, and denying that would hurt their own self-image. Works with most people, but some are just raging assholes lol. If I want my cat to jump up for cuddles, I first have to act totally disinterested and like I don't care what he does. Works every time. To get someone to like you more, ask them to do a favor for you, like let you borrow a pencil. Benjamin Franklin was a big proponent of this idea. When playing rock, paper, scissors, stop right before and ask without looking, can you tell me what color your shirt is? And people seem to always pick scissors after. I've done it to maybe 20 people and got the same result every time. When something funny happens and people or a person in a group laughs, they will look at the person they like or care about in the group the most to see if they're laughing too. When you notice this, it's quite easy to tell who likes who. The Primacy Effect. You're more likely to remember the first item on a list, and the Recency Effect. You're more likely to remember the last item on a list. If I'm listing groceries for my husband, I make the most important items into bookends. If I'm talking to the parent of one of my students about their kid's behavior, I always list good, bad, good. They get the information about the bad, but what they remember about the conversation is how they felt good and saw that I care about their kid. If someone won't stop talking or let you get a word in, drop something, keys, pen, reach down to pick them up and start talking. It's a way to interrupt without the other person realizing it. People become what you call them. You treat someone like a monster, they become a monster. To ensure that someone maintains a certain positive trait, compliment them for it beforehand. People are more likely to follow you if they have your approval, rather than trying to win it. You don't know far people will go when they already have something to lose, a good impression they have on you. If you want someone to work hard for you, tell them how you admire their work ethic, or how they seem like diligent employees based on their portfolio resume recommendations. If you want someone to be nice to your friends, tell them they have a kind face. Don't say this to a guy if you're a guy, or say that you heard a lot of good things about them. Words are immensely powerful. This is also why I never call someone any bad names, even if they deserve it. I once gave this answer in an old Ask Reddit thread that had roughly the same question, so I'll post it again here. More than the Socratic Method. It's not exactly a psychological hack, but it's a useful technique for dealing with people, usually in arguments. More than the basic idea is to ask your opponent questions when you are arguing with them, whereas normally you'd be building points to support your own argument or looking for flaws in their points. You can instead force them to start tearing it down themselves. More than people usually place more value on an opinion if they came to it on their own rather than if someone else tried to convince them. It's a natural bias. I came to this conclusion myself, so I know it makes sense to my brain. If you ask them questions, this forces them to test their ideas on their own and see if they hold up. More than this is especially easy because even in regular conversation, asking questions is just a generally good tactic to maintaining flow. I'm a good listener, and folks usually think of listeners as people who aren't as strong at influencing others. But you'd be surprised how well you can convince people just by letting them discover their own fallacies and then being prepared with an alternative viewpoint. I was always a fan of being aware of the Benjamin Franklin effect. If you give someone something or do them a favor, you're much more likely to do it again in the future. Being aware of it keeps people from taking advantage of you. If you have trouble motivating yourself to do something like learn a skill, instrument, language, etc., tell yourself, okay, I'll sit down and do this for just 5 minutes. A lot of the time you'll end up going for much longer than 5 minutes, but even if you don't, it's still 5 minutes of practice in whatever the heck you wanted to learn in the first place. You can end a lot of arguments with a simple "I understand what you're saying." It validates them while you maintain your position. Kids do well with forced decisions. Don't say go brush your teeth, say you can brush your teeth before or after a story. It gives them the impression that it's their choice. Works every time. People feel awkward when there's a long pause and will fill it by talking. You can use this to your advantage if you're interviewing someone and you want to get them to talk more and perhaps reveal something they didn't intend to tell you. This is also important to remember if you are being interviewed. Don't be afraid of a pregnant pause. Say your piece and shut up. When you're talking to someone who's being defensive and there is a pause in the conversation, let them fill it. Color theory is interesting. Different colors affect you different psychologically. Example, red makes you hungry. Now, notice how many restaurants have red logos. Reddit is full of psychopaths. When you wake up in the dark and want to take a piss or whatnot, keep one eye closed and one eye opened when you turn on the light. When you turn off the light, open the eye that was closed and close the eye that was open to navigate in the dark back to bed. You'll be able to see objects in the dark more clearly. Our retina is bleached when exposed to light and it takes a good 10 minutes or so before peripheral function processing is restored. This happens rapidly when the eye is exposed to light. The retina won't be bleached for the closed eye and thus you'll be able to see well in the dark. This relates to perceptual psych. I've done some research in this field. When you're walking through a crowded hallway, if you keep your eyes focused in the exact direction you're going, people will naturally clear out of your way because we subconsciously use eye contact with people in order to navigate around each other. I know one trick that always seemed to make people intrigued. If you nod while asking a question, people are more likely to say yes. I particularly use this in the restaurant selling drinks. They ask for a beer. I say a tall one while nodding. About a 30% higher success rate than if I weren't nodding. Say the word silk 3 times out loud. What do cows drink? 1. When you want to make someone favor you, try to subtly mimic their movements and posture in a conversation. It creates a false sense of familiarity if you can do it right, but you have to be careful not to get caught doing it on purpose. 2. In an argument, avoid shouting or raising your voice. Yes, Your opponent might not hear you and end up speaking over you. But if you continue arguing your point in a calm, quieter manner, they'll have to stop and actually listen if they want to counter you without looking like a fool. Thus they have to pay more attention to what you're saying. This means that not only will they become easier to persuade, but if there are any spectators will note you as seeming more sure of yourself and are more likely to back your side as a result. While in a conversation with somebody, stare directly at the top of their head, and they will wonder if there is something in their hair or not. 1. Insomnia? Switch the direction of your head and your feet on your mattress. Suddenly, the stress associated with your insomniac perspective of the room, concern about the day ahead, and shame that you always fall asleep an hour before the alarm sounds totally disappears. The light is on a different side. The troughs in the mattress are unfamiliar. The ceiling is different. You can sleep. 2. The Clinton thumb is a non-verbal gesture that emphasizes meaning and sways an audience. Popularized by Bill Clinton in the 1990s. This mini thumbs up is a taught behavior that gives the subconscious both a thumbs up and points an invisible gun. Whether interpreted as a carrot or a stick, you are meant to recognize power and believe in it. 3. Credibility, visualization, and repetition are amazing tools. Scientist and memory hacker Julia Shaw conducted research for her book, The Memory Illusion, that showed how, when used in sequence, establishing credibility, encouraging visualization, and repeating new inputs are perfect ways of rewriting memories. Don't directly ask for money. When we do a program to ask fast food customers to donate $1, most people would say, would you like to donate $1 to feed hungry kids? Customers would almost always say no. If you said $1 will feed a child for a day, if you'd like to donate we can just add it to your ticket. Also in the archery store, people will ask what they owe for a quick repair. Most of them might tell don't worry about it. They will usually tip $10 to $20 for a repair that we charge $3 to $5 for. If someone says something to you but you don't hear it, then when you ask them to repeat it they say never mind and sulk. Just say, okay, in a totally disinterested manner and go back to whatever it was you were doing. Most of the time, they'll pout for a second, then say something like what I was going to say was. Mimic people's facial expressions as they are talking to you and they start to like you because you're literally reflecting the same feeling back to them. Also, if you don't want to stop and chat but don't want to be rude, say hi really quick but do not stop walking. Especially do not stop and wait for them to walk to you. Game over. If you're in a group and you want that person to stop talking, literally turn your body away from them and let someone else. Even if you're still engaging them, they'll get to the point and stop. Sitting in a line, like at a baseball game, turn your head 45 toward them to answer but do not turn your body. When they speak back, do not look at them. Just listen through that ear. Edit. Getting a lot of lash for the last one. I guess I should qualify that it's not my favorite tactic, but it's reserved for that guy. Now that I reread it, it's kinda itchy. Oops. I don't give deworming medicines to my dog. I put them down on the floor and take them from him. I guard them, get between them and him, and tell him not to touch them. He gulps them down before I can fake take them from him.